This episode of The Inspiration Show is extremely special because not only is it the 80th episode, but one of my best friends, Liliana, is joining me on the show. Recently, a production of Parade came to my hometown in Canada, and I was so elated and honored to get to see their production and connect with their cast. Liliana starred as Mary Phagan in that beautiful production, and it is so special to have them here. Thank you so much, Liliana, for joining me. I am so grateful for you and so happy to have you here.
Of course, thank you for having me.
So, when did you discover that you had a passion for singing and theater?
I guess since I was very, very young, I have a vivid memory of me being like 6 years old singing Someone Like You by Adele in the car with my mom, and she was like, "Can you be quiet?" And I'm like, "No." Because it was my favorite song at the time. And so I guess it just kind of took that passion and really went along with it. Like I took a bunch of dance classes, did a bunch of acting workshops, and yeah, I'm currently taking more acting workshops and doing vocal lessons and dance lessons. So it's only up from here, honestly.
Yeah, triple threat. So, what would you say inspired you to become a performer, and who's been an inspiration of yours throughout your career?
Wow. Oh my goodness. That's a loaded question.
Yeah.
I would say, um, I would say what inspired me to really become a performer was just, I think, watching the Matilda the musical tour
Oh,
and
yes.
seeing all those kids on the stage, and especially seeing Matilda. I'm like, I'm gonna do that. Like something just clicked in my mind, and I was like, that's gonna be me come 5 years from now. And it was. And so those have always, honestly, child actors have always been the people I look the most up to because, yeah, adult actors are obviously amazing and they have so much experience, but child actors I just have so much sympathy for and so much respect for because they're new to the industry and they're still figuring everything out and they're just so passionate. And every child actor I've met has so much charisma, and I'm just very grateful for them.
Oh, I connect to that so much. I mean, in a lot of the shows that I've done, I've always been the youngest in the cast. And, to work with other children who are a couple years older than me, or even just like the adults in the cast, it's so special because they really take you under their wing and they become like those family figures that really show you and help you through the industry because it's not an easy thing to do. And especially as a child, so it's just really special, to feel that sense of comfort and to have someone there to work with you and inspire you. And it's so special. I connect to that so much.
Yeah.
So, can you take us back to the first time you experienced theater and how you were feeling at the time?
Yeah, so my first experience with theater was when the first time I watched theater, the first time I was in a production.
You can do both. You can pick whatever. Up to you.
So I don't really have a memory of the first show I saw, but I think, yeah, the first show I did was a production of The Lion King at my summer camp.
Classic.
And I got a lead, I got Rafiki, which was crazy because it was my first ever show that I did. And I was committed. If there was one thing that I was gonna do was commit to the bit. I made like a mask and everything. I bought like cardboard pieces of paper to make like feathers for my costume.
You did
I
the
was like
thing.
8 years old. This was serious to me. And it was the most fun I've ever had. And again, that really kickstarted that notion for me that I had to keep doing this. And yeah, kickstarting the passion as well. And it was so rewarding.
It's so special how you kinda just, like, fall into something, like, through school, and, it's kinda like, "Eh, maybe I'll try that, or maybe I'll dabble in it," and you do it, and you commit, and it just becomes something that's always been there. It's, like, an essential part of your life, and I think that's a shared experience that the both of us have, which is just so special because we were both so little and we did theater, and we both started in school productions as, like, little kids, and got leads and we were like, "How did this happen?" And then we just fell into it, and it's crazy to see that journey now, and, like, I look back on the first professional show I ever did, and I'm just like, it's so crazy to see the road and the journey.
Exactly.
It's crazy. So, you have been a part of countless incredible productions. Looking back on every show you've ever been in and every role you ever played, is there a specific show, role, or memory that stands out to you?
You
I
know what
know
I'm
this
you know
one's
what I'm gonna say. Parade
I
all
know
the
what
way.
you're yeah.
Yes, Parade and
Me too. Me too.
Parade and Mary Phagan will always have a special place in my heart. It was just such a sobering experience, and I got to work with so many people who were just incredible. The cast was so powerful, and I initially, going in, I had second thoughts because I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm working with adults. What if they don't like me? Like, what if they think I'm just like this little kid? Like, da 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 da. And then I went in and they were like, oh my gosh, like you're actually doing stuff. And I'm like, well, yes. And I was just so happy to really be taken under their wing, as you said.
Yeah.
And with being married too, I was so scared that I was going to be like just like the odd kid out, but it was such an awesome like experience to get to bond with my other factory girls who were around the same age as me. And it was again one of the most like overwhelmingly joyful theater shows I have ever done.
Yeah.
I do not regret that experience at all.
Yeah, I think I can speak for the both of us when I say it's one of the greatest things we both have ever been a part of. Like getting for me, like getting to be the smallest part of the Broadway production was just the most incredible feeling. Like the family that came out of that, like I still talk to them every single day. Like I call them my brothers and sisters. Like they are family to me. And it was just so special to watch them tell this story, to talk to them about that experience of telling this story. And I also really resonated with Mary Phagan and just, getting to be the smallest part of telling her story and keeping her legacy alive, I think is so special because she was taken so tragically way too soon. And it's just really special that, we get to symbolize her story throughout this show and make sure that the stories are lived on because the characters in this story, it's an honor to get to be the smallest part of bringing them to life and breathing new life into them. And it was so special to see your production after the closing of the Broadway production, to see how you guys did it and how you told the story. And it was just such a beautiful full circle experience.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So, what elements of acting do you think attracted you to becoming an actor? And is there a specific thing that you feel like made you gravitate to this art form?
Hmm. Well, I I was always a pretty big movie kid. Like whenever I got into the car with my parents, we would have like the movie like TV screens set up on the
Yes.
top of our van and we would just like pull on a movie and I'm like they're so entertaining. Like they can just command an audience so well, the actors and whatever they're doing. And all my life I've really wanted people to pay attention to what I'm saying, not in like a self-centered way, but like um in the acting sense. And so that really drew me in.
Oh, definitely. It's so special. Getting to step into a character, someone that could be like you or could be nothing like you, and, bringing a sense of yourself to this character and speaking for them is so special because literally everything comes out of it. Like you have the stories and you have an audience, and just, when you feel that you're commanding the audience, or like I like to say, you hold the audience in your hand, like it's so special just to look out into the audience and see how everyone's feeling.
Hmm.
Yeah. So was there a specific show that was influential to you that made you fall in love with theater?
Hmm. I think actually recently, I think the show that made me really fall in love with theater, I was already obsessed with theater before, but the show that really made me like appreciate the art and just appreciate the people working on it on and off stage was Cabaret. Um, I watched a bootleg on YouTube, admittedly, and it
What
was
are those? Huh? What?
what? I don't know. I don't know what I just said. But basically, I watched that on YouTube, and um, I was just so enthralled by Alan Cumming's performance as the MC,
Yes.
and I just after I watched that show, I did like a deep dive into like the era, what was going on at the time, like the real story, like not in the musical, things that weren't told. And it was so interesting to see people that actually want to bring that to life. And that was why Parade was so special because
Mhm.
people got to see this true story. But again, as you said, they were breathing new life into it in such a creative way.
It's so special just how like the melodies, the lyrics, and the actors, and just how everything comes together to tell a story that happened 100 years ago. And we talk a lot in the show about like really truth and justice and freedom and love. And we see that things haven't really changed. And it's so special to get to step into a theater and tell a story and see the reactions of people coming out of that show. And just hearing the thoughts that people had after Parade and just reading the words that people had to say about the show was really life altering for me, because that show is life changing. And the things that we cover in that show, people don't really think about on a day-to-day basis. So just having someone come out and like knowing that their mindset was changed, or I'm going to think about that differently, or maybe I'm going to have a little more trust in people, like it's really special to see how a show transforms an audience and how it transforms the actors that are doing it as well. And it just changes so many lives so beautifully.
Absolutely.
So now we're going to jump into all things Parade. So Parade has such a special place in my heart, and it's truly such an important story that must be told. So I'm curious, were you at all familiar with the show and story before your production? And why did you feel the need to be part of telling this story?
So when my voice teacher told me about the Wave Stage Parade audition, shout out Rosalind Mills, um, she told me that the revival was happening on Broadway. I knew that, but I didn't really know the story. And so when I got home from my lesson that evening, I looked up Parade just to see, if this is like a good musical, if I should like actually audition, if I should put my time into this thing. And so I looked up Parade, and the first thing I see is Leo Frank trials. I'm like, okay, this is interesting. Not really what I'm looking for. I thought this was about a parade. And so I just went on a deep dive um, down this rabbit hole of like Mary Phagan, Leo Frank, and I was just so heartbroken, but also I began to see things in a new lens. And so when I wanted to go for Mary Phagan, I was like, okay, if I don't do this, then I'm being complicit in the story that so many people are telling on Broadway. Because at the time, remember, the revival was going on. So I was like, I want to make change. And if this show can be the smallest part of me doing that, then I am more than willing. That's why I'm very, very grateful because it
Yeah.
really changed the way I view so many things.
Yeah, getting when the revival was still running, I had all the cast come onto my show and we just talked about it. And to get to be the smallest part of shedding light on this story, for people to hear about it, it's just so special. And I said all throughout the Broadway run, if one person takes the time to learn about Leo and learn about Mary and learn about what happened, we've done our jobs. And I think I told you this, but I'll say it for those watching. After I left your production, I saw this elderly couple on their phone and they Googled Leo Frank. And I was like, those people after the show took the time to Google Leo. We did our jobs. And just to tell their story and, to be a voice to the voiceless is so special. And I think theater is the perfect way to do that.
Absolutely.
Just, I don't have the words to explain it, but the way that everything comes together in a show, it's so beautiful and so insanely powerful and impactful. And it changes so many lives. I think every person who saw the show, their lives were changed. And I think to all of us who were doing it, our lives were forever changed.
For sure.
Yeah. So when you were first given the script for this incredible piece of theater, how did you approach it and interpret these stories and these characters, knowing that it is a true story and that specifically you're playing a real person?
Well, with Mary, I really felt this connection to her that I had never felt with a character before.
I felt the exact same way. Yeah.
Hmm. And with the script, I really was careful to not write extensively, just for the facts that I didn't want to take up the story. I think also what drew me into the script was Mary was such a sweet girl, and it shows how even the most awful things can happen to the sweetest and kindest people. Um, like for example, one of the main reasons I connected to Mary specifically in Parade was actually the fact that I am a victim of those some of those tragic things that happened to Mary. And when that was the first time I said that out loud, it was very awful at the time. And finding Parade, it was kind of like a metaphor for how scattered I was. And Mary really lifted me up and she showed me that I'm not alone. And it was super rewarding to see a character like me and to
You're
know that
making me
she
cry.
was based on yeah.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And I think I spoke to Aaron about this all the time, and shout out Michael Arden, who is a genius. I think even just the metaphor of the balloon, the audience just saw a white balloon, but to see the metaphor and to see Aaron lift that balloon and look up and the lights dim to symbolize the death of that character, just to see the metaphor in the balloon and to see it flying high. And sometimes the balloon would come down during the show. Like we call it a tech issue or a balloon issue, but it was not an issue at all. It was a sign. And it's just so cool to see how it flowed over. And, we could really feel her in the theater. Like it's so special to see how, when you're telling this story, for me, it was really crazy to see people that I knew personally tell the story of these real people and to see how they embodied these characters. And now, like, diving into Mary more, kind of singing picture show myself and, kind of getting to step into her shoes and her little bow and her balloon. Like, I really want to do her justice. And it's just so special to see how that when we all tell her, we tell different sides of her because we're all doing it differently. We all bring ourselves to her. And I just think the metaphor of the balloon overall and just like her character is so beautiful and it's portrayed so beautifully that we get to tell her story within this whole story that we're telling.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I totally agree.
So I'm excited for this one. What is your favorite scene, song, and memory from Parade?
Ooh, I
I
love this.
think we're gonna have the same ones here. We know each other
Ah!
that well.
So, well, the picture show obviously would
Obviously.
take the cake for my favorite scene. Um,
Same.
but
Same.
my favorite memory was definitely meeting Robert, who was my Frankie for the first time. He was just so inviting. And I
Shout out
remember
Robert. We love
like
you.
I was literally practicing for another audition that I had in the basement of the church that we were rehearsing at. And he came up to me and he was like, "Nice dancing." And I'm like, "Oh, thank you." And um he was like, "Hi, Mary." And I'm like, "Oh, that's so sweet." And then we just talked about picture show for a little bit. And I remember telling him about like my school show and how he was like, "Send me the tickets, I want to come see it." And he actually did, which was super, super sweet.
Aww.
But yeah, definitely my favorite memory was meeting him and growing the bond that we now have. And I still talk to him from day to day.
Yeah.
Like we just
Oh,
had a conversation about the new Ariana Grande album, and it was just so fun.
oh, I know the relationship between the Marys and the Frankies are just so special. It's a bond like no other. And I mean, doing that song, it's the best feeling to know that, you're having fun up there and you're playing off of your own natural chemistry, but you're also talking about the friendship that Mary had with her friend. And it's so special to, get to do that. And like I keep relying on like breathing new life into that. And the friendships that that song creates is just incredible because it's such a fun song in a show that gonna be blatant and honest here, that's not very fun. So it's kind of that moment where, you get to smile and you get to chuckle before, it starts to go downhill. And it's just so much fun to do. And I love doing it. It's
Mhm.
so special. And I mean, we all call each other sunshine now. Like the
Oh, of
things
course.
that the origin that it like came from, for like our nicknames and things like that, like that song became a part of us.
Even I'll catch myself calling my friend Sunshine, and I'm like, oh, that's
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
stayed with me.
And my during the entire run of the revival and during it now, because for my upcoming show, I'm singing picture show in it. My whole family goes, go on, and it's the cutest thing. It's become such a special part of all of us, and it's really special to get to carry that around. So, what was your favorite part and most challenging part about telling the story behind Parade?
Hmm. So, my favorite part about telling the story of Parade was, again, knowing that I was going to make a change and that our whole cast was going to make a change. And when I got into the show, I had no idea how much it would mean to me and how much it would mean to the cast. Um, so that was so important. And actually, every night, one of our amazing cast members, Corey, he would recite the Mourner's Kaddish, which is, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's the Jewish prayer for mourning
Yes.
loved ones who
Yes.
died. Yeah, okay. Okay, just making sure. So multiple of the members in our cast were Jewish themselves. So it was very special that they felt comfortable sharing a piece of their culture with us in a show that is very
Very rooted
cent-
in Jewish
Jewish
culture.
centric, right? So that was so special for me and really opened my eyes. And then I think the most challenging part was, I want to say, the Frankie's testimony. I would have to say,
Mhm.
because I really, those lyrics had to set in for me. And I had to really like recall those lyrics as if they happened to me. And it was so taxing, but it was so worth it.
Yes.
And that's why I was so just like into it, you
Mhm.
know? Yeah, I would say that that was the most challenging part. That and like having to open my eyes. He
Mhm.
calls my name, and I was like, ugh.
Yeah, I remember hearing it for the first time and I just chills. I just had full on chills. And I believe in what you said, and I mean I relate to it so much because I remember seeing the video of Ben and Michaela singing This Is Not Over Yet when the show was at City Center in New York, and I was like, I need to be involved in this in any way I can. Like I was enthralled, and kind of like what you said, I went down a rabbit hole and just did so much research. And then fast forward, I had the cast on my show, and like they became family to me. Like, I didn't think that that one little 3-minute clip of seeing Ben and Michaela sing that song was going to change my life and impact me the way that it did. And it's so special that it did, and I'm so honored that it fell into my lap in the way that it did. And getting to tell this story because it's so important. And I mean, telling this story at any time is so important, but telling this story at the time that you did it was very special, and it was so full circle, and it was just so crazy to see the way that everyone reacted to it and the way that it impacts an audience. It was so special. So, what would you say, how did it make you feel telling this story, and what elements of the show inspire you, and did you take away any positive messages from the show personally?
Yeah, so what I really felt telling this story was just elated, and I think it felt like such, oh my goodness, this is such a hard question because there are so many amazing things that can be learned from the show. Um,
Really?
but really, like, the one thing I learned from the show is that people can become like a family, and that cast was like my family.
Yeah.
And the most positive thing that I took away was, no matter how young you are, no matter how small your role is, even if you die in like the first 10 minutes, people are still going to cherish you, and they're still going to notice you for the little time that you have. So I'm like, why not make the most of it? why not catch these people's eyes? And it was just so, so sweet to, see everyone in the cast just be so kind towards me. And even people who came to see the shows, people I didn't know, they were like, "Were you the youngest one up there?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And they were like, "You are incredible." And then they would just talk to me about my age, and it was so interesting and so special.
That you were incredible, and that whole cast was so sweet. I'm so special that we it was so special that we all got so close, and we got to connect, and I'm just so grateful for the people that this story gave me, and you guys were just the sweetest. It was so special. Love you all. Yeah. So I also want to talk about school because you study theater in school and you just finished a production of Pippin. So what's it like to, bring theater to your schooling and, get to do that because we're both theater majors in high school. Woo woo. So
So,
what's that like for you?
yeah, so doing theater in high school is such a fun thing.
Hmm.
Also depends really on the people you're working with because at some
Yes.
points I was having a really, really hard time. But now I'm just so happy to be at the place that I'm at in my high school theater career. Um, like I've done a variety of theater works in my time as a drama major. I've done improv, I've done clown, dabbled in Shakespearean. And, while in Pippin, it was so interesting to do because it was a musical theater course and I'm a drama major. So it was really interesting getting to meet people who are triple threats, who can do so much. And everyone in that cast I still talk to. They are just some of the most incredible, most talented, most passionate people I've ever met. And I can tell you with the utmost certainty, like all of those people are going to make it far. They are so incredible. And I was just so lucky to be a part of that production. And, I've just learned so much. Having a tough director honestly changes a person. Like I've learned so much as an actor and as a human, and I really cannot thank Pippin enough.
Yeah, that's so special. I love, like you said, like I love doing a production because it changes you as an actor and it helps you grow and evolve and excel, but it changes you so much as a person. And
Mhm.
it's so special that every time you finish playing a role, this is kind of like what I do, but like every time I finish playing a role, I always think, wow, how did that change me? And it's just so special that you become a new person every time you do a show. And it's so special to see how that impacts you and your personality and how it makes you you.
Absolutely. And with Theo, who was the character I played in Pippin, it was so fun to watch those changes literally happen in front of me. People would constantly like commend me because they've seen me in shows before. Half of my friends, like in that show, have seen me in other shows. A lot of my friends came to see Parade and they were like, that was a whole different person I saw up there. That was not Mary Phagan. And I'm like, yeah, that was the point.
Yeah. And no, it's so special when you get to play a bunch of different roles and step into all these different shoes and you're just like, wow, how am I going to approach this? But also how am I going to bring myself to this?
It's the
And
beauty
it's
of
just
being an actor, you know?
it's the best. Being an actor, there's nothing like it. There's really nothing like it. So looking back on everything you have achieved in this industry, what advice would you give to your younger self entering the industry?
Oh, wow. Oh my gosh.
This is always the last question. You made it.
Wow. The advice I would give to my younger self. I know it sounds cheesy, but don't give up.
Oh,
And
yes.
people are going to bring you down. People are going to say that you don't deserve to do what you're doing. People are going to say that you don't deserve to be at the place you're at. But I kept going and look where I'm at. I think that I was so insecure back then entering the industry that, you know, faking it till I make it honestly helped.
Yeah, it's true.
I really did not give up, no matter the rejections you're going to face, because those are inevitable. Like, you're going to face rejections. So I kind of had to, like, let that set in for myself. So I'm like, no matter how many rejections you get, that does not deter your performance as a theater goer and just like a person, you know, because sometimes they're just looking for other people, and that's okay.
Yeah. Definitely, you can't let anyone dim your light. You can't let anyone rain on your parade. You gotta do what makes you happy, and you gotta do what makes you feel good. And it's so special. The opportunities, I like to say that the opportunities that are meant for you won't pass you by. And I mean, because rejection is always something that you'll face. It's part of the industry, but you got to look on the bright side. You got to look on the beautiful sides of the industry. And we're just so lucky to get to do what we do.
Everything happens for a reason, and I believe that, shows like Parade, that wasn't a coincidence. That was like sent to me as like a
Oh,
sign. It was like, this is how you move forward, and this is how you're gonna do it.
I
And
completely agree.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's just so, again,
so
just
special.
keep on relying on that rewarding, because it was so rewarding. Like I'll never be able to reinstate that enough.
Oh, definitely. No, standing on that stage and just looking out into an audience, knowing that you are there because they're there to see you. They're there to see you tell a story. They're there to see what you do what you love to do. And it's just the most special thing. It's incredible.
For sure.
Liliana, thank you so much for joining me on the Inspiration Show. I have so much love for you and I'm so grateful to have you in my life. Thank you for inspiring me.
Thank you so much. You're so sweet.